Hey everyone, welcome back to Revenge Reloaded. The second my mother slapped me across the face at Dad's lavish 60th birthday dinner, in front of 69 high society guests, while my sister Sophia clapped and Dad leaned back, smirking, "Serves you right," I stood there feeling the burn on my skin, but I did not break. What they had absolutely no clue about was that I had spent years quietly collecting proof of their fraud, tax evasion, and financial abuse carried out using my name, and that one calm walkout would eventually trigger federal agents, asset freezes, and arrests that shattered their so-called perfect family forever. My name is Isabel Hart, and I'm 31 now. Last week, at my father's 60th birthday dinner, my mother slapped me across the face in front of 69 guests. My sister clapped. My father leaned back in his chair, smirked, and said, "Serves you right." No one stood up for me. Not one single person did. But what they did not know was that I had walked into that room carrying more than just the shame they tried to hand me. I carried the truth. A truth I had kept silent for years, about the lies, the money, and what they had done behind closed doors using my name without my consent. If you have ever been humiliated by your own family in front of a crowd and made to feel like you were the problem all along, drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? Because this story truly needs to travel far. To grasp how that slap became their downfall, you need the backstory of growing up in the Hart house. On the surface, we were the perfect family, grand house, elite social circles, photos of success everywhere you looked. Inside that house, however, it was a rigid hierarchy, with Sophia at the very top and me firmly at the bottom. I was the eldest, born into a role no one ever asked if I wanted: responsibility, sacrifice, the strong one who doesn't need much. Mom Marlene's favorite line was always, "Isabel can handle herself." What that really meant was simple: Sophia gets the spotlight, and Isabel gets the shadows. Sophia, 2 years younger, blonde, dimpled, our little angel, was magnetic. Mom stroked her hair and gushed endlessly over her talents. Me? I received polite nods and constant reminders to set an example. I learned very early how to swallow my hurts. Rowan's moods, wait, Sophia's moods, dictated the temperature of the entire house. Mom would do absolutely anything to keep her smiling. I learned to fit into the cracks, stacking chairs, washing clothes, serving guests, staying silent when scolded. There was never a "thank you," only, "you're the older sister." Small moments piled up over time. My 16th birthday party was cancelled so Sophia could get a recital outfit. My graduation gift was quietly redirected to help buy her car. I walked to school alone, through freezing winters and burning summers, while Mom drove Sophia everywhere. There was never an "are you tired?" Only, "don't embarrass us." In 10th grade, I entered a speech contest. I spent months preparing, won first place, and stood there wearing an old dress because Mom mocked my request for a new outfit. I handed the trophy to her at home. Mom glanced at it briefly and asked, "Why is Sophia late?" There was no pride, just immediate redirection. College followed the same pattern. Sophia got private tutors and campus tours. Me? I self-applied for scholarships and paid fees alone. When my Ivy acceptance letter arrived, Mom nodded and said, "Don't neglect your sister." When I got sick, with a fever for an entire week, Sophia had a gold medal party downstairs, laughter echoing through the house. Mom dropped off one pill. No touch. No comfort. Family dinners became trials, where I was the default defendant and no evidence was ever needed. Sophia shared spa stories. Mom lit up. I shared a project. Polite nod, subject changed. At Christmas, Sophia announced her engagement, flashing her diamond ring, and Mom declared, "So proud of my daughter." Me? I was asked, "How old are you now?" Still no one. I smiled and swallowed my words. At an autumn engagement dinner, Mom critiqued my dress, calling it church-like, while Sophia whispered, "thrift." I served soup with trembling hands. When I called out Sophia's disrespect, the table turned instantly. Mom snapped, "Don't teach your sister when you can't even take care of yourself." I stood up to leave and was physically pulled back with the order, "Clear the table first." I bent down, picked up plates, invisible in my own house. I almost walked away many times, bag clutched, feet at the door, but I always turned back, cleaned, washed dishes, while laughter echoed behind me. No one called after me. No one asked, "Are you okay?" Dinners continued, slow emotional violence without a name. I remembered everything. Every word, every look, every scar that left no mark. Then came Dad's 60th birthday at a grand hotel, chandeliers, white tablecloths, elite guests everywhere. Sophia made a late entrance in a red dress, received car keys as a gift, and the room gasped while my parents glowed. My gift was a handcrafted frame with handwritten memories. Dad glanced at it and set it aside unread. Mom laughed and said, "Cheap, just like you." As I turned to return to my seat, I collided with Sophia, spilling wine on her dress. The room gasped. Phones came out. Sophia smirked and said, "Thrift can't survive wine." Mom rushed over, not to check on me, but to grab my arm and hiss, "You better not have come. It's always something with you." I raised my head, my voice steady, and said, "You think I'm the curse? Remind everyone whose name is on the second house, who signed the loans, dodged the taxes, and folded the invitations." The air froze. Mom's eyes widened, then the slap came. Sophia clapped. Dad smirked and said, "Serves you right." I stood still. I did not cry. I said, "Thank you for proving I was never imagining any of this." I walked out. No one stopped me. No one called. I walked out. No one stopped me, and no one called after me. My bag was already on my shoulder, my phone unlocked with a contact open, one tap that would change everything. The second house was in my name, an investment, they had said, just hold the paperwork. I signed at 23, living on noodles in a tiny apartment. Mom had sent a cold email, "Sign quickly, no questions." I signed silently, but I saved everything. I recorded conversations on my smartwatch. I took screenshots of Sophia bragging about investments made through my accounts. I traced signatures and transactions. Tax evasion, fraud, falsified reports, credit abuse, all shielded behind my name. Camille once advised me, hold the truth for the right moment. I held it for 5 years. I didn't lash out to humiliate them in front of outsiders. I didn't run and shame them publicly. I watched. I documented, paper, numbers, voices. Dad took loans using my name for debts. Mom pushed risky documents through with my forged signature. Sophia moved assets through my accounts, transfers, laundering, fake NFT transactions. I had everything, receipts, messages, timestamps. They thought I was weak and submissive. In reality, I was listening. I walked through the banquet hall under sneers. Whispers followed me, fake smiles, pity mixed with satisfaction aimed like arrows at my back. I did not look back. The breeze burned my cheek, but clarity filled me. I unlocked my phone. Camille starred. My college best friend, now a federal investigator specializing in money laundering and high-level credit abuse. I hit call. "Ready," she said, already guessing. I smiled for the first time since the party. "Cam, let's begin. I'm sending the file." I sent the organized timeline, coded evidence, and documentation. Nothing was missing. Camille replied, "Notarized copies needed." "Included everything," I said, "even the recording where Mom says, use her name, she won't know the difference." A light sigh came through the line. "Do you know how long we've needed a case like this?" I chuckled. They never cared to notice me, as long as I didn't disrupt their perfect illusion. There was a pause. Then she said, "It's time to flip the board." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Yeah, it's time." I ended the call. The sky was still, no stars lost. I felt calm. The world felt like it was breathing in sync with me. I turned back once toward the building, golden lights pouring from inside. Mom smiled among the wealthy. Sophia raised a toast. Dad sat like a king on his throne. They had no idea. Their perfect world had already cracked. All it took was one call from the daughter they thought was useless. I would not clean up their mess. 3 days after the party, a black federal unit SUV pulled up in front of the house they proudly flaunted. At 6:45 a.m., as Mom finished her coffee, FBI agents in jackets knocked. "Agent Noland, federal warrant. Search and seizure of assets linked to transnational money laundering." Mom went pale. There must be some mistake. A female agent opened a thick file. Investment accounts in my name accessed from Sophia's IP. Illegally transferred assets. A smartwatch recording of Mom forcing me to sign a fake contract. Sophia was filming in her studio when agents arrived, ordered to shut down accounts and surrender her laptop, phone, and crypto wallets. She called Mom. Communications were cut. An hour later, Mom was summoned to federal court under emergency charges. She was charged with laundering money through digital shell corporations and dummy accounts, most of them under my name. She sat silent in the back of a police vehicle, no longer the elegant hostess. My father, an esteemed bank director, was investigated for falsifying loan strings. He had used my name as illegal collateral, forged signatures, and funneled dirty money. Officers arrived at his office, former colleagues watched in silence. No one was surprised. They had always known. They had just never dared to speak. The news spread like wildfire. Front-page headlines read, "Model family exposed in multi-million-dollar laundering fraud scheme. Eldest daughter linked to dozens of illegal assets. Sophia lost thousands of social media followers overnight. Brands erased all traces of her." Exposé clips titled "Rich Kid Exposed" circulated everywhere. Talk shows ran specials. Family collapses after birthday slap. One host said, "The downfall began with what seemed like a small act, when a mother slapped her daughter in front of 69 guests. Mom's acquaintances quietly unfriended and blocked her. Relatives who once fawned used phrases like, 'Sorry, bad timing.' The house they once bragged about was sealed. Assets frozen. Reputation demolished. Trust shattered from the inside. They thought I was weak, the most belittled person in that family. They forgot the quiet ones are always the ones watching the closest." Silence stretched for years while I waited for the right moment. The entire world fell apart because they slapped the wrong person. 1 week after everything exploded, Sophia came to see me. There were no cameras, no flawless makeup, no confident eyes. She stood trembling at my door. Her heels were worn down, her eyes swollen and red. I didn't greet her. I simply pushed the door open and stepped aside. She walked into an unfamiliar world, like noise peeling away from her skin. My apartment was rented in a quiet neighborhood where no one knew my family, where no trace of them existed. A wooden table sat in the center, 2 cups of tea already steeped. I knew she would come. I always did. She sat down, hands shaking as she held the teacup, silent for a long time. When she finally looked up, her voice was rough and broken. She said she thought I was just a shadow, someone without a voice, someone who didn't even need to know I was always behind her. Maybe she had been wrong. Maybe the reason the family collapsed wasn't long ago, but now. She looked at me carefully, and for the first time, I didn't judge her. I didn't reopen old wounds. For the first time, I saw her not as someone standing above me on a stage built by our mother, but as a person sitting level with me, unguarded. "I'm sorry," Sophia said, her voice cracking like shattered glass. "I didn't know until everything was taken away. I didn't offer forgiveness. I never sought it, and I didn't need her to beg. I simply pushed the tea cakes toward her, poured more hot water, and let the silence speak for both of us. The silence wasn't bitter or cold, it was whole. It felt like a quiet declaration, I survived. I would no longer let the past define me." We sat like that. Neither of us said anything more. Because maybe nothing more was needed. Because eventually, even the deepest wounds lose urgency when they stop bleeding. That evening, after Sophia left, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mother. "Can you come back? Your father is sick." I stared at the words. There was no apology. No admission of guilt. It was the same strategy she had always used, invoking obligation, pulling me back into a role I once knew too well, the obedient daughter. But I was no longer her. I stared at the message for a long time. I felt no anger, no hurt, no expectation. I tapped delete. I stood up and drew the curtains. Outside, light rain was falling. Drops tapped against the windowpane like a steady heartbeat. Slow. Calm. I took a long breath, letting the cool air fill my lungs. I didn't respond, not because I was weak, but because I no longer lived inside their echo chamber. My silence didn't end the story. It ended their control. A year later, I live in Vermont. The house rests quietly among gentle hills, morning mist clinging to the base of the mountains as sunlight brushes through crimson maple leaves. It's the same house my parents once told me to put my name under, for investment convenience. It's mine now, legally and permanently. No one can take it back. No one commands me anymore. It's just me. Every morning, I wake up early. I don't clean after anyone. I don't hear shouting from downstairs. I watch sunlight stretch across the wooden window frame. I listen to the soft whistle of the kettle as I make coffee. I feel my fingers brush new leaves in the small garden behind the house. I planted chrysanthemums, mint, and a full row of pale lavender. The kind of flowers my mother once said didn't suit me because they were too delicate, just like you. I sit at my wooden desk and write the first lines of my book. A book about healing from a toxic family. A story about someone who no longer needs to be forgiven. I don't write to seek pity. I don't write to accuse. I write to remind myself that my silence was never surrender. It was the beginning. The beginning of a life without them. Without dependence. Without wounds defining me. The pain didn't disappear. It didn't dissolve like steam. I learned to live without letting it steer me. I learned to breathe, to walk, to love myself, cracks and all. They are still out there somewhere, drowning in the consequences of their own choices. Maybe spinning stories. Maybe assigning blame. Maybe trying to scrub the truth clean. I don't care anymore. I no longer live within their reach. I live where birdsong replaces criticism. Where peace takes the place of verbal war. Where no one tells me who I should be to make someone else happy. The only question I ask myself now is, what do I want today? And that peace is everything. If you've ever been called useless, humiliated in front of your family, compared, shamed, or forced to swallow tears at a dinner table, know this, you are not alone. If you see yourself in this story, drop a 1 in the comments. You don't have to explain. I'll understand. Because sometimes the ones who stay silent the longest are the strongest of all. Like, share, and subscribe if you believe silence can also be a way to reclaim justice. And if you're healing, remember this. You deserve a life that doesn't need anyone else's approval. Thanks so much for watching. More of my most gripping stories are already on your screen. Click 1 now and don't miss the best part. You will love it. See you in the next story.